The sword is the axis of the world, and its power is absolute. Charles de Gaulle. With the confirmed return of the Bleach anime, it was perfect time for my first Bleach-themed series. Bleach as a member of the Big Three has always been pushed aside, in my opinion, due to the cancellation of the anime. But what the community always forgets is that it was a part of the Big Three for a reason. The Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and Fake Karakura Town arcs are all some of the best arcs from our generation. While there's too many great things about Bleach that I couldn't list them all here, from claims about it having the best character designs in anime, to it having the best plot development or character development, I think Bleach is in the Hall of Fame purely for how great its its filler episodes were. The filler episodes in Bleach were so good, I could watch a whole filler arc and not realize it was filler at the time. But all that aside, I want to highlight today a group of Arrancar known as the Espada. Each member of the Espada represented an aspect of death that was key to the very core of their being. That's the goal of this video. I'm going to scour the anime that I've seen, to find a character that I feel does more justice to the aspect of death that each Espada represents. The 10 aspects of death are as follows: greed, madness, euphoria, destruction, despair, nihilism, senescence, solitude, and finally, rage. They're numbered from 9 to 0, and that's how we're going to do these videos, in descending order. So, get ready for this video. Beginning with number 9. Noveno Espada, Greed. Perfectly named for this aspect of death, my character is Greed / Ling from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Since I really don't want to be saying / all day, I'm just going to say Greed Ling to talk about the combined characters from the series. It might seem to be unfair picking two characters to talk about, because Greed as his own entity has an abundance of character development that made Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood even more thought-provoking and enjoyable, while Ling from the very beginning also had his own goals and values he held close to his chest and wouldn't let anyone steal away from him. Greed, from his very conception, is a small part of the greater being known as Father. Greed, the avarice, was one of the 7 sins he had expelled from himself to make the homunculi. Greed, in my opinion, had such a poetic impact on Father's character and his eventual demise, as he was the only homunculus to have, in numerous reincarnations, defied Father. The poetic nature of it is the reason that the dwarf in the flask, lost, was due to something from him, not just anything. His own greed was the cause of his downfall. Because he sought to absorb God, his greed had left him with more on his plate than he could ever swallow. In a symbolic way, his very own greed led him down the path toward his demise. However, in a more literal way, the homunculus Greed had his own hand in the defeat of Father, to both figuratively and literally be the reason for his downfall. Greed as a character is exactly what you would think on the surface, desiring all the world has to offer. Money, power, fame, influence, all are the desires of greed. However, greed desires even more than these, like, nonsensically simple things. This is displayed in how perfectly he values his relationships with the people around him, his underlings, and even how he cares for Ling towards the end. Greed explains that no matter how noble or selfless someone is, everybody desires something. And so why is he to be held accountable? Why is he alone a sinner? Greed holds a desire for more than he could ever hold. Negative or positive is only really a matter of perspective. He deeply cares for those who serve under him as they are his. so in his eyes he values them more than anything. Greed is even conscious of the dangers of his own nature, warning Ed of wanting too much, since his whole goal was to perform human transmutation. Enter Ling. Ling, in his first few introductions, seemed really only to be comic relief due to his careless and lighthearted nature. From his introduction, it would have been impossible to tell that this stranger, with such childlike tendency, could ever be such a masterfully crafted character with phenomenal dramatic writing. Ling as a character is a prideful man, and it may seem surprising to call him that, given that the aspect of death I'm choosing to represent is greed. In my eyes, what was so incredible to watch was how willingly such a prideful man would give up that pride and nobility for the sake of his desires, his greed. During his battle with the homunculus Pride, Ling abandoned all of his pride, battling dirty and using tricks of any kind in order to protect what he holds dear. And in that battle, it became very clear to every viewer that his own pride would always lose to his greed. If they were to ever clash in the conscience of his mind, Ling's greed would reign victorious. Unlike the character Greed, who desired the world and all that it offers, Ling desired peace and prosperity for his people and kinsmen. When what he desires is in danger, all sense of nobility and pride is tossed out the window in the sake of his greed. Much like Greed the character, Greed the homunculus, Ling has a very special relationship with the people who serve him. For both characters, when the people who serve them, the people who are willingly beneath them and the people who will willingly die for them, are in danger, they will put themselves through anything in this world to save them. Ling believes a king serves his people, and without saying it, we all know Greed believes the same thing. They protect their own. Bringing these two complex characters together was one of the best part of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and made their interactions the highlight of every episode they were in. Hearing two people who were perfect foils of each other interact in their own mind, where Ling was constantly reminding Greed of his own true nature, and inspiring Greed to take back his own desires and become the avarice he once was. Needless to say, I love their interactions more than anything, and due to the fact that they were the same person at one time, gives me the lenience to use them both for this entry. One of my favorite scenes that I'll just end off on is where Ling willingly accepts the Philosopher's Stone from Father, knowing he would become a homunculus, because he knew more than anything that his greed could devour anything in this world. No matter how vast of a challenge it was that he came across, Ling knew that nothing could Ling knew that nothing could fill the vessel that was his greed. And that is what I love about these two characters. They fit the theme of greed much better than any character. Well, the character from Espada, I forget what his name was. I think his name was Ariñero or something. See how, barely I could remember this guy. That is why there needs to be a character who represents it better, because the Espada idea is one of the most brilliant in anime. Well, the fact that they all represent an aspect of death. I love this so much, and here we have this series. Thank you for watching this video. If you feel you enjoyed the video, feel free to check out other videos in this series and on my channel. Also feel free to check out the Moontails Anime Podcast, where me and a group of friends discuss anime as we watch them, and really just anything that's on our mind at the time. So, farewell everyone.
この世には2種類の魂魄がある。一つはプラスと呼ばれる通常の霊、貴様が普段目にしている幽霊だ。そして今一つがフォローと呼ばれ、聖者死者の別なくを襲って魂を食らう、いわゆる悪霊だ。ここまでで何か質問はあるか？
とりあえずお前の絵が異常に下手な理由から聞こうが。ああ！何しやがる！説明を続けるぞ、バロン閣下。